templates, exceptions, and the cost of coordination. A meeting ends with everyone agreeing to update the dashboard. Yet the work still stalls because the checkbox says done, while the real situation says not even started. The template is complete, the reality is not. When standardization replaces local judgment, coordination becomes more predictable on paper, while becoming less truthful in practice. Standardization begins as a sincere attempt to reduce friction. Fewer formats, fewer surprises, fewer arguments about what counts. A shared template makes information portable. A category makes cases comparable. A checklist makes progress legible to people who are not present. These are real benefits, and they are purchased under an explicit constraint. A central system cannot afford to understand every local context in detail. That constraint forces compression. The template must be short enough to be filled out quickly, strict enough to be aggregated, and stable enough to be used across teams and time. But compression has a predictable failure mode. What does not fit the fields is treated as noise. The system does not say, "This is complex." It says, "This is missing." From there, a trade-off appears. On one side is variability, the messy, irregular facts that local judgment can hold in mind. On the other side is uniformity, the tidy representation that coordination systems can route, count, and approve. The more the system optimizes for uniformity, the more it taxes variability, exceptions, nuances, timing differences, and interdependencies that do not behave like neat rows. Incentives then do their quiet work. If the organization rewards what is visible in the template, green statuses, on-time updates, completed forms, people learn to aim at the proxy. This is not primarily dishonesty, it is adaptation. A person who knows that approvals depend on certain words will use those words. A team that knows it will be measured on tickets closed will close tickets. The system invites performance of compliance. A feedback loop forms. The more leadership trusts the standardized view, the more decisions are made from it. The more decisions are made from it, the more power it holds. The more power it holds, the more everyone invests in making it look coherent. Meanwhile, exceptions become expensive. They require explanation, additional approvals, extra meetings, and the risk of being seen as difficult. So exceptions are delayed, minimized, or translated into acceptable categories. This translation is a kind of flattening. Consider a generic incident workflow. The form asks for root cause, owner, and resolution. Many real problems have multiple contributing causes, shifting ownership, and partial resolutions that create new risks. But the template requires a single root, a single owner, a single resolution date. The local reality is not permitted to remain plural. It must become singular to pass through the gate. Over time, the system learns the wrong lessons. Because the template cannot represent ambiguity, ambiguity is underreported. Because the categories cannot represent novel cases are forced into familiar bins. Coordination improves in speed and consistency, but its understanding narrows. The organization gains predictability and loses sensitivity. And when an outcome fails, the postmortem often blames execution. The process wasn't followed, rather than noticing that the process made certain truths unsayable. This is why standardization is attractive. It externalizes judgment into a procedure. It promises that if everyone follows the same steps, outcomes will align. But local judgment is not just a preference. It is the faculty that notices when the steps no longer match the situation. When that faculty is displaced by templates, the system becomes legible while becoming brittle. This mechanism reveals a value choice. Templates value comparability over completeness. Dashboards value visibility over depth. Checklists value repeatability over discernment. None of these values are wrong, but they are not neutral, and they compete. Attention follows measurement. What is counted becomes salient. What is not counted becomes peripheral. What is penalized becomes unspeakable. When people spend their attention maintaining categories, they spend less attention listening for anomalies. Responsibility shifts as well. If the form is correct, one can feel correct. Meaning erodes in a second-order effect. Work becomes the maintenance of representations rather than engagement with reality. Local judgment, when it is allowed, is a form of responsibility. The willingness to say, the template does not capture this, and to bear the social cost of making an exception visible. When it is not allowed, responsibility is reduced to compliance. The system then trains people to be good at being measured, not good at seeing. Consider a single recent moment when a template, category, or checklist made a situation look simpler than it was. Notice what could not be said inside the approved fields, and name the incentive that made silence the cheaper option. Then examine what the system treated as a failure, the messy reality, or the person who tried to report it. Coordination that cannot speak its exceptions is coordination that will eventually be surprised by them.